My name's Tiyana Pentland. I'm an artist and a photographer, and for the past few years I've mainly been shooting film and bands, but I came from a fine art background. So at uni I studied fine art and did mainly printmaking, which kind of led me on to doing film photography because I like the idea of printing and the artist being involved. It's quite tactile, it's quite intimate. I wanted to bring in ideas of intimacy from within the home context to more of a public space. And then I thought about how in recent events in Iran, there's been a lot of political unrest, as there has been for many years. And it got me thinking a lot about how in touch I am with my culture and my heritage, as I'm half Persian, half British. So I wanted to bring the idea of how I feel quite liberal and able to do what I want to do because I live here, and kind of intimacy is within the context of the home as well as out of the home. But if I were to live in Iran, it's the intimacy is kept more within the home, and outside the home you can't express that so much. So I wanted to kind of connect back to my heritage and show this sort of this push and a pull between being intimate and being able to be liberal and do what you want, but also depending on context and where you kind of fit. If you're unaware of where Iran is and the people, I think it's a nice introduction for people to get a better understanding of who the people are and not what they see in the media, which I know is a very typical answer for most countries, as it's not the people, it's always the politics that gives a negative impression. But I think it would just be a nice introduction to people who haven't met many Iranian or Persian people, and give them a chance to kind of contextualize it in a space that is accessible rather than watching it on the news. I think something that would surprise people is how, to be honest, how warm of a project it's turned out to be. I'm really trying to get a range of answers from people and a range of people involved in the project. And I think it might surprise people to see some of the imagery that's accompanying the film and the stories within the film because of their perception of Iran and Iranian people so far. And then what surprised me is probably how much of a community there is out there that I didn't experience before. And it's been really healing for me to meet these people and interact with people who come from similar backgrounds or similar stories of being mixed race and never quite feeling like they belong to one group or one community, but in itself becoming a community. So I now already feel like I've met people who are part of my new community through this exploration and through this project. I mean, obviously I'm only speaking on behalf of myself and I'm mixed, and that's quite heavily what I wanted to get across in this project, which is why the imagery is so contrasting to the scene and the film, mainly because that's how it feels. And I think that's how, through the interviews, it has come across that that's how other people feel. And that can be applied to not just being Iranian, that could be applied to being like mixed race or, you know, being from one place but living somewhere else. And it's more about how you feel as though you're both or all of these things, but you're also neither of them because each community doesn't quite welcome you in the same way, or doesn't mean to not be welcoming, but you just don't feel fully it. But it's sort of, yeah, it's about how I feel living as a mixed race Persian person, and that I wanted to share that with people now and show that you can have the best of both and you can create a new community. And kind of as time goes on, there will be more people like this because of travel and because of people moving around. So it's okay to identify as all of it rather than having to categorize yourself into one box, and blending those cultures through imagery and art and film makes, you don't have to pinhole it to being like, well, that doesn't look very Iranian or that doesn't look very British. It can be a blend of the two. It's bringing that blend, that mix into a space so that people can understand a bit better why the imagery that I'll be putting up and the film are together. I wanted to create a home setting because I spoke about that intimacy of being in the home, but in certain places like Iran, you can't have the same level of freedoms and almost just comfort and being relaxed outside of the home as you would inside the home. So I wanted to bring literal pieces from my home, mainly because that's probably like as intimate as I can be in that context and showcase my own items. Because also for me, that's quite difficult. People will be sitting on my chair and it'll be a lot of strangers sitting on my chair and touching my furniture. That, you know, it really brings back the idea that it's a part of me that they're sitting on, interacting with. And then on top of that, it really just, I think it gives people, it's more interactive. It gives people a chance to kind of be more immersed in the space and feel that almost, I don't want to say discomfort, but feel out of place, as sometimes I have felt and other people that we've interviewed have felt in different contexts. You never quite feel like you belong to one, but you are also all of them. So to kind of sit in someone's living room, but in a public space, you're not quite as comfortable as you would be actually sitting in a living room. And I think that would be quite interesting. But this is definitely the first time where I've just allowed more of a lack of control it, and more of it's way more personal than I've ever made work before. I feel way more involved in it, and less of a spectator to my own work for the first time. And I think in a way that's made it more difficult for me to produce, but also more healing to produce. And I feel a lot more vulnerable. So when people come and see it, I feel like it's very exposing. Feel very vulnerable, and I feel like people are going to be seeing a lot more of that. And I'm kind of curious to see what almost my reaction would be to that, and then keep it as like an ongoing project in a way of, I've invested a lot, people have taken away something. How am I going to feel about them taking that away? Is that going to develop into something else creative, or will I stop it there because I feel too vulnerable?